Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Scott Harding and I are back again, talking horror remakes. Excited?
Yes. For this episode, incredibly excited.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Yeah, so if you missed the last episode, I will link it in the cloud for you to go watch.
Yeah, and stop this one and go and watch that one now because this
And
is
then
a
come back
series. The idea is you watch all
in
of
order.
the series. Yeah.
That's right. Yes. And yeah, so I'll link that in the cloud so you can go watch that and then come back to this one. Um, and in today's episode, we are talking the 2013 remake of Evil Dead.
Yes. This is such a good. If you want an example of how to do a remake, this is the example you use always.
Yeah, I love this movie. I saw this one in theaters too. Actually, I think I saw this one in theaters twice. I loved it so much. I do think I went back and paid to see it a second time. And I did not see, I saw the originals out of order. I saw Army of Darkness first.
Yeah.
That's like my dad's favorite. And then I saw The Evil Dead and then The Evil Dead 2 after the fact. So I was much older by the time I saw those. But yeah, this is probably my favorite remake so far. This is my favorite one.
Yeah, it's definitely up there with mine. It's in the top 2 or 3 remakes.
Yeah.
What they done with this is so good. They took something that is well established, well loved, and they took all the good bits from it, and then they added more good bits to it. They
Yeah.
kept a relatively similar storyline, but changed it enough that they lead you down one path and then they twist it slightly at the end. It was good enough that someone who hadn't seen The Evil Dead could go and watch this, fully understand it, and love it.
Yes.
And someone who's seen The Evil Dead can go and watch this, love it, and also go, "Oh, that's brilliant! Oh, they took that from there. Oh, that's great! Oh, that references that." It's such a good movie.
It is really good. I think like one of my biggest complaints, like this is like a trope that I hate, is what I call the credible witness. So this is when we're in a horror movie and someone of perfect sound mind sees some crazy shit and nobody believes them for no reason other than it doesn't work for the story. I hate that. It drives me crazy. And what they did in this remake was they took our person, our credible witness, and they made her a drug addict.
Yeah.
And that was one of the smartest pieces of that story because in the original, when things start going awry, no one believes, like it's just like this thing where no one believes anybody. And I tell my friends all the time, if I tell you that I saw some crazy shit, you better believe me. Like,
Yeah.
But this gave the perfect reason. She's going through withdrawal. She needed a fix. She would say anything it took to leave. And that was one of the most compelling pieces to this story for me. I love that they did that.
Yeah, I love that they've done that, and I also love the fact that they've got the I don't want to call him the nerdy guy, but he's the nerdy guy, and he fits that nerdy guy trope so well. He wanders down in the basement.
Sure.
He finds something wrapped in black bin bags, covered in barbed wire, and every single person in the theatre, and even when they watch it at home, go, "Don't open that." And then with that, he then starts rummaging in the drawer and he finds a pair of wire cutters and cuts it open. And everyone's going, "Don't do that because I know what's in there. Why are you doing that?" But again, it's done so well because he's done he doesn't believe in any of this. And he's gone, "Well, what's this? Why have they wrapped by? Let's have a look."
Yeah.
It's just so well done. And in the first one, in the original Evil Dead, that's something I thought they'd done not very well.
Sure.
Where they find things and it's like, "Oh, look at this. Let me read it aloud." Don't do that. Why would you do that? But in this, he doesn't read it aloud at first. He's kind of just like flicking through but it's much more believable.
It is. And I think I think in general, the other thing that I always thought was really interesting about the original was these friendships. Like at the first sign of trouble, they diminish. Like is it Scotty? Like he's just like, fuck everybody. Like I don't care. She's your girlfriend. You deal with it. Like
you deal with it.
Completely out. And these friends like are genuinely invested. There's a story, there's a history, there's a connection. it's not quite as I guess like bare bones as the typical like, oh, a group of friends go to this place, and like there was some story there, some background
Yeah.
that I really liked, and all of those story elements made everything else that much better.
Yeah, they made it. There's a reason. The original, they go to the cabin.
Sure.
That's the backstory you get. They're going to a cabin. End of.
Yes.
In this, they've gone to the cabin for a reason. It's out in the middle of nowhere. She can't run off and go and find someone and take some
There's
more drugs.
logic. Yeah.
It was a family cabin. The other thing that I didn't realize about this till very recently. Did you know this is a sequel?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
I
I got someone very kindly told me that on Twitter one day when I posted about it being one of my favorite remakes. Yeah.
It is a remake. It's a rehash of the old story, but
Sure.
it's a loose sequel. The
Yeah.
Oldsmobile is out the front and it broken down, and that is Ash's Oldsmobile, and it is a sequel, but this is a remake. You can't look at it any other way.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Some of the you're right.
Fix my camera.
Oh,
Stop talking.
I thought you were high fiving me.
I agree. No, my camera went fuzzy. I was trying to fix it. It could be two things.
Is this the part? Is this a part of the episode where we high five? The things they've done exceptionally well in this is the visual effects, keeping the vast majority of it practical effects and not going down that rabbit hole of, oh, we can CGI all this, let's do that. They didn't do that, and I really appreciated that. And she's terrifying when she goes down in the cellar. She is absolutely one of the scariest characters in horror.
She's fantastic, though. When there's two scenes that like always, I mean, it's all really good, but the two things that always got me after she's already like turned into this disaster is when she's like leaning out the side of it, and I forget the girl's name, but she has the meat cutter, and she's like, or the carver, whatever you want to call it. And she's like starts jerking her face, and she's like, cut it. Like she says all that. I was like, oh, this shit. And then the part where she like comes up the steps when the other girl is down on this, it's the same girl, I think. And she like comes up the steps. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah. The bit for me is where I can't remember which character goes down, and she's coming up the stairs, and they hold out the Stanley blade, and she licks the Stanley blade and splits her tongue. It's like, oh my God, why did you do?
That's so good though. When that happens, you're just like, you hate it, but you love it. Like,
yeah. Everyone has the same reaction. They go, no, that's great. No,
it's like when you do this, but you like peek through your hands. Yeah. I actually went with a coworker to see this in theaters one of the times that I saw it, and it was the first time I'd seen it, I think, because one of the scenes that got me that I think is so funny, because like I'm not like a super big jump scare person. Jump scares are fine. They absolutely make me jump, but I hate them because they never linger. But there's that moment where Mia is like huddled like this in the bed, like she's sitting on the bottom of, or in the corner of the bed. And, you know, her brother comes in and he's like talking to her, but like, she's not responding. And then she turns around and she gasps. And that's like the only thing that happens. And me and the person I was with in theater both went like this in our seat, because we were so invested, because this is after the tree and everything else. And I'm like, I was like, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. That moment, like there's so many moments like that where you are so locked into what is happening that it just gets you unsettled. But that jump scare was so obnoxiously good. Like it got me really well.
Yeah, and you mentioned about the tree. I think they handled that so much better in this than the original is way over the top and about 8 minutes too long.
Yes.
Where in this, they done what they should have done in the original. The thought of it happening and showing it almost happen is worse than actually seeing it.
Yeah, because then your imagination runs wild, and what affects everybody is different. So yeah that's a super effective method for things like that, because sometimes it's like, you know, less is more. Like you don't have to show, I was actually really worried about that because certain things of that nature are kind of triggering things for me in horror movies. Like I have to be careful sometimes about what I watch. It really upsets me. Like I can't sit through it. And so like I was worried about that going into it, but I read a lot of stuff about it, like leading up to it, how they talk, like all these, they had a lot of conversations around this moment because it is so pivotal, but it's also like, it's a lot like to do that. And so, I agree. I think it was done much better in this, leaving it up to the imagination of the viewers.
Yeah, and I've said this so many times on the show, and I'll continue to say it. What goes on in our heads when we're given just a hint of an idea is far worse than anything they could ever put on screen. Because we've got issues.
That's
Not just me and you, but everyone has issues.
I was gonna say I can't even say just horror fans.
The thing is, this is a movie. So I done a poll a while back of movies that you'd take someone who hadn't seen a horror to. This was the most suggested movie.
Really?
And
that you take people who've
never seen horror, this would be what you'd introduce them with. And when I started asking, because it kept getting suggested, and I started going, well, why would you choose this? And they all come back with the same answer, because it's got such a gentle entry. It brings you in so delicately and gets you invested in all of the characters that when it turns, the chances of that person going, I can't watch anymore, is slim, because they want to know what happened.
That's a really good point. When I think intro horror, I think like The Others. Like I think like really like yeah, I don't think like that. But that is a really good point, and I think it's fair. It's kind of the same thing as what we were just talking about. Like you want to look away, but you can't because you just need to see. You need to know. Like, yeah, that's a really good point. I wouldn't have thought that would have been a high choice, but that makes sense.
No, I didn't. When it started getting suggested, I was like, these people are just evil. And then when I started questioning, I was like, oh, okay, no, that actually does make sense.
It does. It's like it's I mean, psychologically speaking, I can see that. Like I think that makes sense. I think that one of the things too that I really loved about this was the change up of like the way that it ends. So like the when with Mia, you know, him like trying to bring like you have to kill the host, and then like there's like all these instructions, right? And he's like trying to do whatever he can to save his sister. And if I didn't say this already, I think the casting choices for every single character was perfectly selected,
exceptionally well,
perfectly selected. And which is really funny because the girl that plays Mia does like all kinds of stuff. Like she's not just like a horror, you know, like she does all kinds of stuff, but she nailed this role. But when she comes back and we meet this big showdown in the end of her versus the Abomination, that was one of the most exciting like ending moment sequences of a horror movie that I love that ending or that part so much. Like I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like ready, like I'm in theater, so I'm trying to be respectful, but I'm like, oh, like I'm like so into it. I'm wanting to say things out loud to the screen. I'm like cheering Mia on, and I'm like, oh, like I'm just so pumped about it. And I didn't feel that way about any part of the original. It's just such a different emotion. So I really like that part too.
Yeah, and I think part of that is they build up her brother in everybody's imagination that he is going to be Ash. Yep. So you get him
instantly.
He's defending, then he goes and he gets the chainsaw. And I remember when he picked up the chainsaw, I was like, fuck yes, this is going to be awesome. He's got the chainsaw. It's the new Ash. And I could not have been more wrong. And when they twisted it on its head, I was like, this is better. Yes. I much prefer this.
I loved it.
The amount of blood in that final scene, is obscene.
It's obscene.
I can't think of another movie that has that much.
I think the only one that's well, I don't know. I think this is right. So I think from a like a number standpoint, I think the scene with the most blood currently, I think, is It Too, the remake, the bathroom sequence.
Yeah.
But I would assume that it probably was this until chapter 2 came out. But I think and it was so funny because like I just didn't expect any of those things to happen. I
No.
honestly, I thought he wasn't going to be able to bring her back. He was going to be our final person, and we were going to get that shot coming through the cabin at the end where he turns around. Like I thought that's what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And when it changed, I was so there for it. Like I loved every second of it. And Mia makes my final girl crush list every time. Like I absolutely love her. And I love her like her arc from this forgotten, lonely, sad addict who was abandoned by her brother when she really needed him. She's got all this stuff going on after her mom got sick and stuff. And then she's now this like, you know what? I've had it. Like she's just like, enough is a fucking enough. Like she finally is just over it. And I just loved it. It's like I just love that change in her. It was so good to see. And like when she pulls her arm out from under the Jeep, I gotta stop being so animated. My camera does not like it. I can't help it. Sorry. Yeah, like I loved all of those final moments. They were so good. So good.
Yeah. Do you know what my favorite part of this is? And only because I work with these, and it's the most horrific thing ever, is the nail gun.
Yeah.
It's so the practical effects used for that nail gun are incredible. And anyone who works with nail guns, that would hurt so much.
So because you're from where I don't use nail guns for any reason. So that was done really well then from a realistic standpoint. So like that seems like that's what it would be like as far as what it looks like. Yeah, that was pretty excruciating to watch. I also didn't like when he pulled the out of his eye. I was like, there's so many though. There's so many moments like that. The gore is so fantastic in this, and it's all looks so good. And like this, the scene where I can't think of the nurse's name, but she when she cuts her face, and I mean the hot shower, every sequence of gore was just beautifully executed. Like I loved it.
And all tied together so neatly, and it made so much sense of how the demon jumped around and done
from person to person.
They took what was such a good concept and idea and delivered in such a brilliant way, and they just took it up a notch. And they still kept things in there, like you've still got the first person shot of the demon coming through. They still kept all of that, and I love the fact they kept that. They still filmed that the same way as well.
Yeah.
So they filmed that with it's a board that they mount the camera on. It's got 4 straps, and people run through the forest and hold the board, and that's what gives that effect. And that was Sam Raimi who created that, and that's still used today in lots of films.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
I love that first person type of shot of the monster. I think is fantastic.
I like that too. And I think it's done just enough. It's not like you're not oversaturated with too many shots like that, so they don't lose their effectiveness. It's still eerie like each time that it happens, because this doesn't happen too much. So what are your thoughts on this new one, Evil Rising?
Evil Dead
Rising.
I've got some concerns, but they mainly center around the fact that it's not in a cabin. It's now in an apartment block in a city.
Mm-hmm.
When it's confined, this demon jumps from person to person quite a bit in the whole franchise. It jumps around.
Yes, right.
Which in a confined space in the middle of nowhere, it can only jump to 5 or 6 people. What concerns me in an apartment block is this going to be jumping around, and are we going to get 6 or 7 multiple stories of different people they're going to try together? Because I don't want them to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be interested to see what they can do. I mean, you've got Bruce Campbell's executive producer. Sam Raimi's involved as well.
Yep.
So I don't know. Together they've not done anything that I hate yet. So I'm holding out hope.
Sure, that's fair. I'm curious to see, because we have like a few details, but we don't know like a ton about it yet, which is hopefully when they do, like when we see more about it, hopefully it still kind of keeps it that way. Because what I really don't want to happen either is I don't want to know everything before I go see the movie, because trailers do that a lot these days. I'm hoping that's not what's going to happen with this, but I'm interested to see the concept of opening it up like that is it's kind of interesting.
It's definitely an interesting idea. And the crazy thing is, without this remake, this would never have become a thing, this sequel. But also, you would never have got Ash versus the Evil Dead. It was
Right.
this remake that brought enough attention to bring that back.
Yeah.
And anyone who says, "Oh, I hate that remake," my first question to them is, "Do you like Ash versus the Evil Dead?" Yeah. Oh, you should like this remake then, because without this remake, you wouldn't have that.
It was done after. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I think this is like one of the best. Like I just don't, and it goes back to what we talked about before is like it's got enough of these nods, but it still has all of its own things going for it. And it's such a like perfect balance of the two where you're not feeling bored because you've seen it all, but you're not overwhelmed because it's all new. Like it's just so well balanced. Yeah, I love this. Mia is like that whole thing is so they did such a great job. I love it.
Yeah, she is by far the superior cast member in this, carrying everything from the broken, hurt girl at the beginning to the badass, probably one of the strongest final girls in any movie at the end. And that arc, you see every part of that. You see the broken, you see how she builds back up, and then how she completely crumbles, and how she it's such a good arc and acted so well.
Yeah, and that includes, of course, like her when she's possessed. Like she just, I mean, every moment that she's on screen, you're watching. Like she completely has your attention and your like excitement. Like it's the ending to this was just so good. Every time I watch it, I get amped. Like again, like I don't know what's gonna happen. Like I get the same feelings when that thing is crawling out of the ground. I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, do you know the other bit I really love of this is right at the end of the credits rolling, where you get Ash pop up.
Yeah.
What a perfect way! What a perfect nod to anyone who loved. Because let's be honest, most people left when it ended. It was only the Evil Dead fans who were still sat there, the original who lingered, and then right at the end you get Ash pop up. Groovy, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. I'm done now. That's fantastic.
Cute touch. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I like this. I didn't know that it was supposed to be like a continuation until like way after I had seen it for the first time. But it is, I mean, like it certainly feels like a remake. But I know there are people who argue like it's not a remake.
Yeah.
Like, well,
it walks like a remake. It talks like a remake. The fact you've got a couple of things that were in the originals, and the director and the writer said it's a sequel.
Yeah,
I would love to see the bit in between that ties the two together, because there's a big gap. But saying that, we can't say that because the Evil Dead 1 and 2, you can't tie those together either.
No, that's true. I remember going in to see the second one and being like, why are we back here? I was so confused. Well, and the other thing that made it feel like a remake to me is the opening sequence with the girl and her dad, where the girl's in the woods and, you know, it's like, to me, it was like, oh, this is like the start of everything.
Yeah.
Like it just seemed like, and then they get there and all those dead cats are still there. And I'm like, okay, so this is the beginning of it all. So it certainly feels like a remake. It presents itself to be a remake. So I've always considered it one. Most people do.
Yeah, I do. I don't care what other people say. It is a remake. Yeah. How do you score this?
Oh, let's see. I think I don't know if I've ever given this one a score. I didn't even think about that. Let me think for a second. I think I would probably give it maybe like a 9.5. And I think the only things, and these are such, tiny, tiny things. I think the only things that I didn't really like, and it's not a huge complaint, it didn't bother me that much, but I didn't like seeing the other version of the girl in the woods. Like that took me out a couple of times. Like when we saw her, when she comes out of the muck, and then when she's like off in the distance, and then we see like that weird version of herself in the mirror, like some of those things, I kind of like, I could have dealt without those little things. And, but otherwise, I don't know why it's not perfect. But I would say like a 9 or a 9.5. I'm going to stick with a 9. I'll stick with a 9. What about you?
9. It's a 10.
10.
It's as good as a remake can get. There's a few remakes that sit on this level. I don't think there's another remake that captures the original as well, while still giving it a new direction.
No, that's true. That's true.
So yeah, it's a 10 from me. I can't give it any less than that because I
And
feel
it
I've been.
really does. It really could just be on its own. Like even you know what I mean? Like, and that's one of the things that a lot of remakes also could never do because they just the way that they're built around like they it's like again, it's either too much or like it's complete like I don't know. I like that this had the balance of both, but you like walk into it and you get enough knowledge, like you said. If
Yeah.
you've never seen the others, you can watch this and love it and appreciate it regardless. And that's not an easy thing to do either, I feel like, when you're talking about remakes specifically.
No, and I think a sign of a good remake is that you could take that remake as a standalone and go and sit people who've never seen anything to do with it. And if they
Yeah.
like that, that's a good remake.
Yeah. Because they have to know something. Like
Yeah.
you have to be able to walk away with the knowledge about what you just saw. If you're going in, you're like, I have no idea what was going on in that because you haven't seen in the originals that it's based off of. Like, yeah, that's kind of a problem. It's a disconnect. So yeah. And I think, and again, this was another one that I felt like it brings in the old and the new, like people who were evil. And there's so many people who have like the Evil Dead on their influential list. Like this movie is huge for a lot of people. And I don't know anyone that I can think of that isn't a massive Evil Dead fan that didn't love this remake. Like I don't know anyone that I've met personally that loved the original that doesn't have love for the remake, which is also not a normal thing.
No, I know of one person, and
One?
they don't, and they don't hate it. They just don't like it as much as they
Okay.
like the originals. But
Hmm.
I think most people accept that this is well done. It's hard not to. It's hard. It's a hard movie to pick holes in. The acting's great. The story's great.
Yeah.
The visual effects are great. It's really, even to nitpick things, it's hard to nitpick things because their attention to detail, even down to the point that when he cuts the binding off the book, he cuts his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Later on in the movie, the cut is still there
On his hand. Yeah.
It's little things like that you just go, yeah, okay, this is good.
Yeah. Got to have respect for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of my favorites. I love this one.
Yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Cool. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Minus my random high fives like twice about this. Sorry.
Yeah, should we do another one? There you go. High five.
Last minute. It'll mess up my camera and then I'll have to do it again. Yeah, cool. Well, yeah, that's Remakes episode 2. Evil Dead. The Evil Dead. The remake is just called Evil Dead, right?
Yes. Yeah, just called Evil
Keep
Dead.
wanting to add the, and then when I go back, I say Evil Dead when I mean the Evil Dead. My brain works about 30% of the time. Yeah, cool. Well, that's episode 2. We're not going to tell you what we're doing next. Not because we don't know. But
No, we know exactly what we're doing next.
We have everything perfectly planned. So you'll have to check back when we do it. You'll figure it out. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching episode 2 of Remakes with my co-host Scott Hardy from You Run Podcast. I didn't say the You Run Podcast in the beginning. And this is gonna be a continuation thing, so I'm gonna always put his information, where to find him, in the description below. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. Have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you guys in the next one.